He was working in a hot press right next to him, and we had a great big old wooden chair packed with sacks and everything. We'd sit down and go to sleep. Well, Johnny come up there and take our seat and wouldn't allow us to get in it, see, because he was a lot bigger than we was. So I went down below the batteries there to Spick Road. See, well, that's a long, long time ago. I was telling him about it. He said, "To tell you what you do to get him out of that seat or pay him back." He said, "Go uptown and get you a little old bottle of oil and mustard." And when he had a wheel, he turned to shut off the slicer. Whenever he gets ready to shut that off, or just slip over there and put a couple drops on that wheel. So I slipped over there and got a couple of drops on that wheel, and he got to turn it, and he went blind. And Charlie Nunman, he knew, you know, the guy pulling all tricks. And he told my dad was running the press, and he told my dad, he said, "Why don't you handle them there boys just right?" But that was a great time. Dwayne Freshwater, he was a young fellow then, and, well, all of us was young, but anyway, he worked in a boiler room. He had a great big old wheelbarrow, and I bet they put 4 or 5 bushels of ashes on that wheelbarrow and wheeled it up that ramp. You remember, George? I couldn't only get about halfway up.
I could never do it.
Huh?
I could never.
I could only get about halfway up. But Dwayne Freshwater, they just walked right on up with it. That's well, a lot of things went on, you could tell, but then they I'll give it to somebody else. And I spent 3 years and 5 months and 3 days in the Army. And I was in California for 2 years. And I spent 2 winters out there. And I never missed a winter so bad in all my life as I did out there in California. It never did rain in the Army, it just rained on me. You know, when you worked on a farm, when it was raining, all you didn't go to the house, you went out in the barn and laid in the hay, you know. So it just rained in the Army. It rained in the Army and rained on it too. And I drove 4 head of horses, all manure and hay and things like that. I got the pictures out there in the truck. But anyway, I had 2 of them, and then I broke 2 more. And then they've got 8 artillery horses, and I hitched up 8 head, just like Budweiser. And I had a 4-horse team that I could drive all over camp and never touch the line. I went down to the motor pool one time to pick up some stuff with a wagon and 4 head of horses, and the guy, I drove up there, and the guy said, "Well, you can't get in here because you can't turn around with them horses." Well, I told him that ain't no problem. "What are you going to do?" I said, "I'll back in there." And well, it was about that wide between the fence. And I pulled up and started backing and never looked at the horses. I just looked at the back end of the wagon. Whenever I wanted to go to the right, I said G or haw. But I didn't have to pull up and start over. But I went crooked, you know, going back. And the guy said, when I got back down Hollow Road, he said, "You need to buy a driver's license." I said, "No, I don't want no truck." So, there's a lot of things. One time I was running a crane over there. Well, we built a pontoon bridge that carried a 40-ton tank. It was 840 foot long, and he carried a 40-ton tank, and we built it in 24 hours doing the Poe Valley Drive. That's some of the experiences, you know, you had. I'm about to give up.
All right. Thank you, Leo. So there are a little more experiences. Anybody else? Yes, Mabel, come on up here. We heard from Bob. Now we're going to get the other side of the story.
I don't know about that.
Oh, she says she didn't know about that.
Well, I'll tell you what it's like to be a farmer's daughter. You've been hearing all these stories about the factory and everything. Well, my father raised beets. And one of the jobs for people to do was to go out and help pull the beets. And that was not easy on the back, that's for sure. And I can remember doing that. And I can remember in the fall when he'd take his lifter and lift the beets loose from the ground so that they could be lifted and throw it into piles. And I also was trusted with a sugar beet knife. I was kind of young, but they did let me top a few tops. And another thing that was nice, John Tauscher is the one that hauled our beets in from ahead. And I thought it was so nice to see those young men coming out and load up the truck. And for some reason, I thought I had to be out there too. I just wanted to tell you that side of the story.
The memoirs of a young lady during the years, huh? Memoirs of the young women in the beat high days. All right. Anybody else? Earl, you got anything? You worked there a couple campaigns. Do you remember anything other than what we're telling you today? Oh, well, maybe somebody else will fill in the dates. We ain't found much out about the ponds yet, have we, Rex? We've been still looking for when them ponds were built. We've got to narrow it down a few years, but we ain't got the date yet.
Yeah, when I started there, it was back in the 30s. Things wasn't much good outside, so my dad and I came down and we were putting new timbers in what they call the airplane that carried the beets back to the flumes. And new scales, we built the scales in there for bigger outfits down the road, rather than wagons. Had quite a few of those. And then on, when the factory started, they switched me over into the boiler room. And I cleaned boilers and wheel ashes and a few other things. Anything there was to do in the boiler room. And that got to be quite a chore. He was right about them big wheel bars, because he couldn't have got any bigger ones or wouldn't have got through the door. And then on, they needed somebody in a fire dryer. Where they put that in later on to dry the pulp, big old drum like they got our cement plant. Pulp come down there, and we had 1,500 degree fire in this dryer going back through that drum. Then it went upstairs to the sackers, the pulp room up there, the big 100-pound sacks, the great big sacks. It's quite an experience. I guess they're, I don't know how many can, well, ever since Olds had it, and I don't know exactly when they quit or anything about it, but then anyway, I worked each campaign. It's pretty good money. I made 15 to 12 cents an hour when Dad and I came down here at first and putting them timbers in. We got raised up to 37 and a half all at once for wheeling ashes, I guess, and stuff like that. I guess that's pretty good money for back then. I know if I would get $34, $35 a week, that's pretty good money. And I guess that's about all. We help clean up. When we have a cleanup day, we'd have to, all of us get at it and clean up all our different outfits and stuff like that around there, always working. So it's quite an experience. About all I can remember. My life, our end of it anyway.
Yes, Elmer.
I'd like to know what happened to the pulp. What they do with all the pulp? Most of them.
Question is what they've done with all the pulp. Yes, Ike? Was it sold to the farmers, or did they just come in and pick it up and give it to them to haul away, or how was it? Okay. It was sold to the farmers for cattle feed, things like that. Any other questions? Yeah, Ike?
I worked there a couple of years, and my job is what they call a sample boy. And there's about 10 places around the factory that had to be a sample taken. There was sugar and salt and all that stuff. And that was I had to go around every hour, and I worked 12 hours. Get samples, they took it up to the lab, had it tested.
Okay, thank you. There were 14 wells on the original property here, like I think it was 66 acres, something like that. In between the Fairgrounds Road, McDowell Pike, and around here to German Street, there's like 66 acres, I think is what the original plot was. And there's like 14 wells around the perimeters of this property. They were 10-inch wells. Some of them, I'd say, were 600 foot deep, some of them 300, but on the average, they run them down pretty deep. We've got 2 of them on our property here now. The one's out here in the parking lot that probably a few of you talk nasty to when you're trying to get through the parking lot. But that's the one we use to heat the building most of the time around here. We use geothermal heat in here in the front part, so we use that well. There is another one at the back end of the property that we don't use. It's capped off. The other wells are all buried, except one. I take it back. Dan Nutter come and see me, 10 years ago maybe, when they was building that first building over here that Advanced Buildings is in now. The one of the committees or councils or somebody around town built this building, and then they tried to get somebody into it. CIC built it, and they tried to get people in to come in and stock it, so, or own it, buy it, whatever. Well, this one company that was looking at it needed a lot of water. He says, do you remember where the wells are at? I said, well, right. But I said, we can find them maybe. So because when we bought this 6 acres here on this end, Harzog and Webb give us pictures. They came, Albert Roof got them originally from Chicago, or Fort Wayne, from Wally Agricultural. He went to Fort Wayne. This Wally called him up, says, I think that's something I think you might like. And they're the original pictures that were, the building was built. It being built starting in 1909, they're up in the front hall, up in the front meeting room. So he jumped in his car and he went right straight to Fort Wayne and picked these pictures up. Then he ended up, going to Toledo the same day, I think he said, because of a name that Wally Agriculture gave him as some engineer in Toledo. And he ran up here and got the blueprints. So we've got the original blueprints the building was built with. We've got some of the original pictures that were taken when they was built this thing, starting in 1909. Compliments Mr. Roof, maintaining them and keeping them, and then giving them to Harzog and Webb, and we thank him for that. We also thank Harzog and Webb for giving them to us when we bought this 6 acres on the end. So they are preserved. But anyway, we're getting back to the story of the wells. I said, we got the prints. So we got the prints out, and we found the well that was on that property over there. He got a surveyor to measure it out, where it was at. And then they got a surveyor in there, and they found that well. So they did find that well over there. In the meantime, the commissioner, the engineer's office has bought the property, the rest of the property. And they've come over, and now they've got a print of the property. Now they're trying to find the rest of them so that they can seal them off properly, because of groundwater contamination is such a big item in the EPA now. So the county's in the process of trying to find all these wells. Because back at the time, probably a lot of you remember, they used to stick up out of the ground probably this high. But then there was a problem with people, they thought maybe there was something wrong, so they had to Red Dogs to come in and doze a long hole along one side and bend them over and then just cover them up. So that's where they're at out in there yet. They haven't been found, but they're trying to find them. One day they'll find them and cap them all properly. So these blueprints that Mr. Roof went down to Toledo and picked up and saved for us have come in handy already. we've used them. And we do have them available. So every time the engineers want to use one of these maps, we make a copy of it. We give a copy so we don't have to keep using the originals. So we can keep the originals in pretty good shape. The less time we handle them, the longer they'll last, the originals. So we're using a lot of copies, and when somebody wants to use some of these prints, we let them go to the county especially, and say, all we want is a print copy when you bring it back, so we don't have to get it out again. So that's kind of how we work a lot of things around here. We have to work together with a lot of the counties. Anybody else? Got anything they want to bring up? We'd sure like to hear from you. So if you've even got a little bit of memory, you might not know what you remember till we stir it up. Yes, Miss Alice.
Mrs. Boyer was going to be out here today. She was at Sewell, and her father came and bought all this land. He came from Illinois and bought all this property from McDonald Pike over to what do you call it over here? Anyway, yeah. And then they sold it to the beet factory, and they were the ones that built the big house on the corner as you came into the drive to the way station. They sold that then and moved down where Cliff Smith or down the house is down at the end there. And she said at the time there was a big a pond just back of their house over there. In other words, it'd be on McDonald Pike, she said, on the east side of the road. I don't remember, does anyone know anything about it? But she mentioned that it was true because Mr. Who was the Iceman, would cut ice off there, off that pond, and sell it. Barnes, yes, Mr. Barnes. And I'll probably be killed for telling this, but I know of a young man, lived just across from the beet factory. His parents lived there, and whether or not the wagons went so fast that the beets fell off the wagons, or whether this man thought they should be leveled at the top. Anyway, it seemed like he had a little red wagon, and there were enough beets fell off that wagon, or rolled off some way, that he got a wagon loads and took them to the beet factory to sell.
I noticed names were omitted there to protect the... We've heard stories about the beets being falling off the wagons in different yards down along the North Williams, East or West Wayne Street there. Would have different people would go out, pick up the beets and stack them up in their yards, and somewhere down the line somebody would pick them up, take them and sell them. So, yeah, there was different things like that going on. We heard that about the railroad years ago. When the railroad, they used to find coal down along the tracks. It fell off the cars, too. That was during Depression when they had big carloads of coal. Things like that happen, you know.
By the way, we ate the tops off the beets, too. I remember that. They were good. They were beet tops, like the...
Turnip greens?
Yeah.
Turnip greens, yeah.
They were beet greens.
Only they were beet greens, right? Similar things. Any other foods, maybe things that you made on the beets at home for home use? Yes, Bubby?
When this plant was in full production, how many people did it employ?
Question, how many people were employed at the beet factory during the peak production? Anybody? Jim, do you remember how many? Any idea?
200 during the campaign and maybe 20 through the year.
200 during the campaign and 20 during the entire year-round season, year-round employees, basically. Okay. Any other questions?
I have another question.
Go ahead.
For the gentleman from Ottawa, when he purchased the plant, do you recall the reason why it was for sale? And why they were getting out of it?
Lunch was a scrap dealer, and they bought it for scrap. They were from Canton, Ohio, and they represented well, the lunch people aren't scrap either. That's their business. They sell scrap to steel mills.
So it was evidently sold to the scrap dealers, and then the scrap dealers sold them, or Mr. Ruth bought from the scrap dealers. Yes, George?
You know, when the beet plant, when the claim came to a close, Mr. Klinger said, now, George, he said, probably sometime through the night we'll be through cutting sugar. And of course I was happy because I'm an outdoor person. And if it hadn't been for the way the Lord had taken care of me, well, I don't think I could have survived it. I lost my dad when I was 4 years old. So you see, we have to eat. I was never a thief, praise God, hallelujah. Well, I was going to tell you, I had never got into big money because I never had very much of an education. And when the beet plant closed for the last time, Mr. Klinger came around and he said, George, he said, probably there won't be work for all night, but he said, we appreciate what you've done. And there was a store on a union out of Fort Wayne that was hunting up every available man. That's during the war years now, after Pearl Harbor had been bombed. And he said, would you be interested to go up to Fort Wayne? And he said, the work that you'll have to do will be manual labor till the weather opens up, and then as you put in that you could do skilled work. And I said, yes, I could do it. And this, of course, is a little bit after we've been married. Maybe I could take it a little bit. I'll tell you though, this union store, he came around and he said, George, he said, would you be interested in a job? And I said, I just got off of a job at midnight, and boy, I should have some rest. He said, no. He said, we got to have you right now. And I said, well, how am I going to get to Fort Wayne? He said, we'll make a way for you. We're out hunting every man. They were from Indiana, and any place that they could find an available man, you had a job if you wanted to take it, till Uncle Sam sent your greetings to you. And you know, believe it or not, people, I was so happy about it when I went up there, and they hired me in just a few hours from one job to the next. And believe it or not, we was on 2 days. It was the last day, and I can't tell you for sure how it happened to be 2 days that would be time and a half. And you know, George Straley came home with a $22 check, and that was the most money I ever made in my life. $11 a day. And boy, I'll tell you, I was hoping there'd be a lot of those days like that. But we went to work off of this job up there, and the difference was so much difference because of the union. That's the first thing they caught you on. You have to be a union man. Yeah, you won? Well, I got a card, and I don't know where it's at. I've lost mine. But I'll tell you, that was a lot of money. And as soon as the weather opened up, then I went in on the skill work that they had to do. And it was the first time in my life, they said, well, maybe you never worked very many jobs. The first job that I ever worked on in my life, that the superintendent came around and he said, George, we watched your work. We know that you can do it. Now, George Straley, if you don't know it, you do know that I'm a bragger. He said, I want you to go to West Virginia with us. And I said to this man that was he was the superintendent of the big job up there. He said, well, we've been watching your work and said, we'll put you in on this job and you'll really be in the money. And that was fine, but I said to him, I said, most any time we're looking for some mail from Uncle Sam. And I said, I got 2 kids and a wife, and I just can't go to West Virginia with you. But you know, the Lord God knows what He's doing. And He kept me at home. And so, through Jim over here again, I'm on Jim. Jim said, Straley, he said, I want you to come in and help me. So we went and worked for Jim, and then on, and 55 years we followed the business of driving nails, building houses, because you don't dare say that, Jim over here. I'd only be a small builder with what Jim used to build in houses, but we did build quite a few homes, and I'll tell you, I'm just happy that I know the Lord is my personal Savior. He's been awful good to us, kept us together, and I invite all of you over next August, but I think it's too many of you. On our 60th anniversary.
All right, thank you. 60 years, Lord. Okay. You got something else, George?
All I want to say is the last business I've done with the sugar company was in '73 when Mr. Rook sold the sugar company to Mr. Hartzog. Hartzog come to me and said, "I've cut 3 big logs down on the sugar beet property. You're buying from sawmills." Yeah, I said I'm buying from 3 sawmills from a pallet in it. I'll talk to Harley Graham, the old Edgerton. And I told Harley, I said those logs come from the sugar factory ground, and now they claim there's no wire fence near them. Well, Harley said, "Don't worry, Price." Said, he showed me where he had a metal detector. He said, "I'll metal detector every one of those." So I loaded them up and took those 3 logs over. When I went to pick up the lumber, he showed me what happened. See, the 3rd log he cut, he had a horseshoe right in the center. He took all his teeth off from under his jaw. It cost him $150 to send it to Indianapolis to have new teeth put on. I said, "All right, put that on Hartzog's bill." Harley said, "I won't do it because I cased the first 2 logs and I figured the 3rd one was all right, so it's my fault." That's the last business I did with the sugar company.
Okay. Yeah, them old trees, they grow anything inside of them, don't they? Okay. Anybody else? Last chance.
I have a question.
Sure.
Out here along the road is those little cement buildings, they're not very big. Was that holding the pumps from the pond?
Down along the road down there, there's, yeah, okay. You know that, Albert? What was in them?
They were the location of the pumps. You see what they did? They pumped the water out of the well by, we were discussing it, an unusual way. At that time, when those wells were put down, they didn't have a deep well pump. So what they did, they capped the top of it and forced air down the outside of the put air pressure on to get the water up. And it flowed by gravity from little houses.
Like Albert was saying, most of these wells were so deep that we didn't have deep well pumps back at that time. So they forced air pressure down into the well, and then the water would come back, take the path of least resistance. So you couldn't push the water back in the ground, so the water would come up. And then flow back to the plant, and then from there they used to pump it up into the water tower, and then it was gravity fed. And in the years when we was building here, we ran the water line from out here the street into the plant, and I had a 4-inch cast iron line and a 6-inch vitrified line running side by side. Well, what they done, the cast iron line was used to bring air pressure from the plant to the wells, and the vitrified was used to run the water back to the plant. So that's how they got the water out of the wells. And we've got one of the caps out here in the barn yet that they used to cap off these 10-inch wells. So that each one of them was that way. There there are some more wells. I think, originally, I think they said there was like, 16 or so.